Welcome to another edition of MLB Pro Happy Hour. I am your anonymous GM here on a beautiful June 29th evening, approaching sim time, approaching the end of June. All-Star break coming up, the start of the international free agency beginning soon. We have the trade deadline about a month away. We are at an exciting time here in the MLB Pro season. I asked for some questions, comments, topics that you guys wanted covered earlier today, and you all provided some interesting topics, and I think we're going to begin with something that is fast approaching, that being the international free agent period. Just the other day, we were given the list of what is 54 international free agents on the open market. We have players demanding upwards of $4.8 million in outfielder Eloy Jimenez, a power-hitting Dominican outfielder. Some scouts are saying he projects well to hit to all fields. He's got plus power potential. He's 21 years old, 21, really closer to 22 at this point in his time. He could be a hot commodity for a team looking to add a young power hitter. The highest demanded pitcher on the open market currently is 19-year-old, also Dominican Sixto Sanchez. Known for a hard-throwing fastball, sits in the 96 to 98 mile-an-hour range. Also has a plus curveball, plus changeup, great control. He's turning 20 later this year. Changeup is a bit of a work in progress, but stuff is plus. Outlook looks like a bona fide major league pitcher down the road. 6 feet, 185 pounds. Maybe not an ace, but definitely someone that can have a successful career at the big league level. Other notables on the open market in the free agency period really begin with right fielder Juan Soto. Again, 19 years old, Dominican, left-handed, smooth hitter, hits for average, hits for power, plus fielder, has some speed. You have infielder Luis Urias, 21-year-old Mexican, plus contact hitter. He doesn't have power. Solid defender, decent amount of speed. Other players up the middle, you have a pair in Aramis Ariman, 19-year-old Dominican, slick fielder, can play multiple positions on the infield, experienced both second and short. You have Andres Jimenez, another strong fielder, decent speed, contact hitting 19-year-old Venezuelan. The pitching market is filled with pitchers, both some maybe more suited for the bullpen. Hard-throwing Andres Munoz, 19-year-old Mexican. A fastball that is upwards of just under 100 miles an hour. Also has a plus slider, a changeup that's below league average, and there's definitely some concerns about his control. But there is no denying that his pure stuff is as good as it gets on the international market this year. 19-year-old hard-throwing Luis Medina, 99 to 101 mile-an-hour fastball, also a plus curveball, plus changeup. Again, question marks over his control. If he lands in the right system, it's developed slowly with pitching coaches in the minor leagues who are able to work with Medina on his control. You could have a steal. 17-year-old Brazilian Eric Pardinho, 4 pitches, one of the best curveballs on the open market this year. Control really isn't an issue with him. He's just young, underdeveloped, 17 years old, born January 5th, 2001. Is a little undersized at 5'10", 160 pounds. Given time to develop, you never know. Pardinho on the open market currently demanding $1.2 million. You have a bevy of prospects behind the plate. There was some concern after the draft that maybe this was a weak major league draft behind the plate, but you have 5 catchers headlined by the pair of Diego Cartaya and Keibert Ruiz, the 19-year-old Venezuelan. Both appear to have plus contact ability. You also have the likes of an Antonio Cabello, who possesses some speed, thinking back a la the days of a young Jason Kendall, perhaps. Maybe can hit atop the order someday. and provide a unique skill set that you don't always see with young catchers. It's going to be interesting to see what teams do. What is going to be the approach? Will teams zero in on a prospect and spend their entire $5 million hard cap budget on a single player? Are teams going to be more focused on spreading that that cap across 2 or 3 players, maybe 4 or 5? Or are they going to be focused more on that $1 million range? Some speculation that some teams have tried to find ways around the hard cap, whether that be negotiating potential trades beforehand. Maybe their way of attempting to get around the rules that are in place, it appears. It'll be interesting to see how that's handled if teams have luck doing that. A team that's rebuilding, will they be able to find that missing prospect that they maybe missed out on the draft? A team that was going pitching heavy, do they now find that outfielder, that third baseman, that shortstop that they passed on the draft? Will they be able to cash in? Or will this be a year where maybe the top of the class gets a lot of attention, but after that, are we going to see 15, 16, 17-year-olds that go unsigned this year with a hard cap in place and 54 international prospects? Are we going to have guys that are waiting a month, 2 months, 3 months, perhaps even until next international signing period before they get signed? It's going to be an interesting season in the international market. Here we are upwards of, 3, 4, 5 days away before the first offers can be made. Expect action early once the signing period opens. I think we're going to have a much clearer picture what goes down and what teams are focused on sooner rather than later come early June. Another topic that many of you were interested in recently was the series of trades that took place last week, 2 involving the Toronto Blue Jays. The first one was the Claus Bongers trade with the Milwaukee Brewers, in which the Toronto Blue Jays acquired Bongers and Joe Austin, young pitching prospect, for starting pitching prospect Izuki Mori, Major League reliever Dan Runzler, and Major League reliever Miguel Los Santos. It was a trade that within the league chat room, frankly, had what turned out to be mixed feelings. Some felt the Blue Jays got the better end of the deal. Others felt the Brewers got the better end of the deal. And while I think it's tough to say, a week after the trades happened, personal feelings from the anonymous GM, I tend to side with the Brewers on this. We have 2 teams with their hearts set on winning. Obviously, the Blue Jays are trying to chase down the Orioles. They're right in the thick of the wild card, but having acquired the starting pitchers they've acquired through this season via trade, Pineda and David Price, they've addressed fill-ins needs there. They addressed a need in a trade we're going to talk about in a second with the Indians. But the likes of a Klaus Bongers, while scouts drool at his pure stuff, he has an electric fastball, or electric slider. He throws really hard. He's a ground ball pitcher. And he has the potential to be just filthy to right-handed hitters. That said, his on-field success has been questionable a little bit. He struggles against lefties. He's walking over 4 batters per 9 innings. His strikeout total for a pitcher with that electric stuff, he's still striking out less than 7 batters per 9 innings. Is he going to fix the back end of that bullpen? And you add in the fact that to acquire Bongers, not only did they trade a top prospect in Izuki Mori, a young 20-year-old, also throws extremely hard, 97, 99, plus fastball, plus change, good curveball. He's had tremendous success early on in his career, both in the Winter League in the WDL out in Hawaii. He had strong success last year at the Rookie League and low A ball for Dunedin and Vancouver. He had been off to a good start for A ball Lansing, 11 starts, an ERA of 2.51 in 76 innings. He had 59 strikeouts and 23 walks. So a young potential pitcher who has a bright future. But also, while Dan Rensler had been struggling, there's no doubt about that, and he's overpaid, so maybe getting rid of his contract was a key for the Blue Jays. But I think we're not talking enough about the production of Miguel De Los Santos. De Los Santos on the year, 43 innings, an ERA well under 2, 43 strikeouts in 43 innings, just 11 walks. Left-handed hitters are hitting 200. Right-handed hitters are hitting 227. 21 strikeouts, 1 walk against left-handed hitters on this year. Miguel De Los Santos is a left-hander out of the bullpen that is as dominant as anyone has been this year. And if you're the Blue Jays and you were concerned about your bullpen, why would you have included Miguel De Los Santos? Again, I understand that the stuff of Bongers is electric, and maybe he figures things out, and it could work. But for a team in a win-down mode to give up a guy who was being as dominant as he was, plus a prospect in the likes of Amori, I think there's some question marks about what the Blue Jays were doing there. The Blue Jays were quick to follow that trade up by acquiring Don Winston from the Indians. With that, you had a pitcher, not a pitcher, but a first baseman who has tremendous power. He's shown it both at the minor league level and the major league level. But a hitter that has extreme question marks when it comes to just making contact. In 87 major league at-bats this year, Winston is hitting 161 with 33 strikeouts and 5 walks. Is that going to play full-time for the Blue Jays? There had been talk that he's going to primarily hit against right-handed pitchers. But he's only hitting 231 in limited action so far this year against right-handed pitchers. And his production at the AAA level this year still wasn't anything dramatic. He was hitting 266 for AAA, an on-base percentage of only 302. Was that something that the Blue Jays needed? There had been talk, and they had been ridiculed for their first base combo and DH with Tyler Moore and Jacob Julius, 2 guys that had negative WARs on the year. So we understand that they wanted to fix what they had. But again, it comes at what cost at that point in time? The prospects they gave up, while Mark McCain at 24 years old does seem underdeveloped. There is no denying that. So maybe he isn't the highly regarded prospect that some before the season thought he was. But Peter Solomon, 21 years old, 5th round pick last year in the draft. They'd acquired him not long ago, part of a trade for Mark Rzymski with the Cincinnati Reds. You have Solomon, a pitcher of 4 pitches plus fastball plus slider plus curve plus change. Question marks about his control, but he's been pitching well in the minor leagues. 2018, he's 8-2, an ERA of 2.13, 65 strikeouts, only 22 walks, and 84 innings on the year. That's at the A+ level. He'd had some success down at A-ball in Lansing, where he was 6-2 in 69 innings, 54 walks, 54 strikeouts, 21 walks. So again, was acquiring someone like Don Winston worth the package that they gave up? Time will only tell. Another trade that happened recently was a trade that I think, while people knew the Astros were talking to, or it had been long rumored that they were talking to a team in the American League West, I think the level of the trade that took place was something that, frankly, surprised many. The Astros agreed to trade young 24-year-old pitcher James Kaprielian to the Texas Rangers. The Rangers sit in 3rd place, 6 games out of the division lead, 46-36. A team that has always been right there with the Angels and Mariners. A team that needed to make a move. They did it. You add James Kaprielian to a rotation with Jamie Widner, Trevor Cahill, Takahuni Fujita, even though he's had some mixed success this year, and you're all in. If you're Texas, you're signaling that, hey, we have the potential to catch the Angels. We have the potential to catch the Mariners. We can make the playoffs, and we can be a threat. James Kaprielian in 115 innings, 72 strikeouts, a WAR just under 2. He's pitched in 17 starts, 12 quality starts, 70% of his starts are quality. He's been dominant against right-handed hitters. Right-handed hitters are hitting under 200 on the year, while he has had some struggle against lefties. Lefties are hitting 302 with 8 homers and 262 at-bats. But it signaled something. And not just to acquire Kaprielian, but then you add in Michael Hicks, who's had a very strong year, 27 innings, ERA of 2.28 out of the bullpen. You add Matt Garza, again, 24 games pitched, just under 30 innings, ERA just over 2. You made a lot of improvements if you're the Texas Rangers at the big league level at that point in time. As far as the Astros, it's difficult to talk about the Astros in this sense. You had a young right-handed pitcher in, I believe, his second year at the big league level. He was showing production. At what point do you need to start utilizing your young talent? You have Edgardo Arredondo. You have some of your other players that you've promoted to the big league level, and your future's still ahead. You're not trying to win now. I get that. But don't you need to continue to cultivate what you have at some point? We're going to get to what they acquired in a second. But James Kaprielian is someone you could have built that rotation around. He could have been a central piece for the Houston Astros for the next 10 years. And not only do you trade him, but to a division rival. I think that's the hard part. And someone that maybe wasn't necessarily shopped around and waited until the teams become maybe more desperate at the trade deadline. Maybe something was out there. But that's not to say they didn't get talented pitchers. Tim James is 24 years old, though. So the centerpiece of the trade may be Tim James isn't Major League ready, unlike Kaprielian. He's pitching well, though, in the minor leagues, but only at A-ball. He's never pitched above A-plus league. 24-year-old starting pitcher. He's got more pitches than he knows what to do with. Throws a fastball, slider, curve, change, splitter, and a forkball. If he can put it all together, maybe he becomes the left-handed version of James Kaprielian. The centerpieces, though, were the other minor league pitchers. 20-year-old Cody Chapman, 2016 first-round pick of the Rangers out of Poland, Maine. He was a member of the Winter Developmental League for the AL West, a team that was general managered by Matt Wells. So Wells and the Astros got a good look of Chapman early on. In addition to Chapman, you had Cesar Beltran, dominant curveball, electric changeup. But he's just 18 years old. He has a long ways to go before he becomes anything. 20-year-old Anthony Richardson, the Rangers acquired last year at the trade deadline for Yu Darvish. Richardson continued to develop. His stuff is highly regarded across the minor leagues as being among the best. But the questions are, is he a starter or is he destined to be a reliever? He has a changeup that just isn't developing. Scouts don't see much in terms of his changeup. The guy that down the line could be the best player that the Houston Astros acquired in this deal would be Julian Gomperz, the former first-round pick of the Rangers, 2017 draft. 3 electric pitches out of the bullpen. A plus fastball, plus changeup, electric curveball, cutter. Some say on the level of a Mariano Rivera. He's highly regarded in the clubhouse. Electric stuff again, electric movement, plus control. He's just 19 years old. Again, it's not to say that these pieces won't become anything for the Astros. But to trade someone like James Kripalian, did they get enough? I don't know. I do know the Texas Rangers, they're going to be trouble for teams. Whether they can win the division, I don't quite know. There remain some question marks for the Rangers. They continue to strike out a decent amount. There's not much team speed. There's a reliance on extra base hits. Did they do enough out of the bullpen? A bullpen that struggled, and just they've given up entirely too many home runs on the year. If they fix that in a one-game setting, though, they can beat just about anyone in the American League. It'll be very interesting to see how the AL West finishes out the rest of the year, and frankly, the wild card race. You have a team like the Blue Jays sitting at 49-30. The AL Central, while the Royals have had first place on lockdown for quite some time this year, the Minnesota Twins are sitting there still at 45-34, 2.5 games out. A very quiet year out of Rocky Cook. The defending World Series champions are easily flying under the radar. You still have a middle of the order in Gary Copeland, who easily could be American League MVP at this point in the year, hitting 325, 24 homers, 57 RBIs. Miguel Sano still producing right behind him, hitting 284, 14 homers, 50 RBIs. The power extends 2 more spots, Lance Ray and Daniel Fields. A team that has put together just another fantastic year offensively. On the mound, there have been question marks this year. While Kevy Sampson has a winning record again at 6-3, his ERA's just under 4. Juan Oramis at 9-3, but an ERA of 4.65. The highly talked about offseason acquisition of Masahiro Tanaka has not panned out at all. Tanaka was given a 7-year contract, worth $134 million, and he's so far this year 2-8 with an ERA of 7.4. He's allowed 98 hits in 70 innings. It's not been what they've expected. You throw in a bullpen that lost Vizcaíno to the Orioles in a trade, and while Kenneth McDowell has pitched fine, they're missing Vizcaíno. There is no doubt about that. Casey Jansen, they lost in the offseason, but there they are. Just don't count out the Minnesota Twins. Over the National League, while trades maybe haven't been as big recently, there was an interesting acquisition yesterday with the signing of David Wright in San Francisco. Wright has been out of baseball all season. He finished up last season with the Chicago Cubs. The Giants have kind of had a black hole at third base so far this year. They've been trying with Trey Ford. Ford, though, was hitting 199 and the on-base percentage under 300. It wasn't working out for Trey Ford. You bring in David Wright, a player who last year with the Cubs had 15 homers, hit 257, a WAR of 4.7. His on-base percentage was 389. You have a guy who led the National League in walks, 108 walks last year. He was top 10 on-base percentage, top 10 runs scored. To get him for $5.5 million, if he can still play the field with the way the Giants have built their team in the win-now mold of their offseason, acquiring the likes of Cameron Maben. You had Daniel Schlereth. We've talked about in the past. Bringing in Matt Latos, I believe, as well. They're an interesting mark. You add David Wright to a lineup that's had trouble scoring. 7th in batting average, 8th in on-base percentage, 4th in runs scored, though. Take that back. Cameron Maben, the last 2 weeks, has finally started hitting home runs after having a lengthy bout with an injury. You still have Anthony Hale and obviously Prado and Buster Posey in the middle of the lineup, but if you can add in David Wright, that lineup grows in length and in danger. And sitting 6.5 games back of the Colorado Rockies, you have the San Diego Padres up there as well. The National League West is wide open. And while I think it's safe to say that the National League East is likely to get one of the wild card spots, whether that be the Mets or the Braves, it's not without question that the National League West take both of them. The Dodgers, there have been rumors that the Dodgers are going to go into heavy sell mode between now and the trade deadline. If the Giants pick things up, they can steal both of them. I still think the Padres might be the team best built to take things out the rest of the year. And I say that while the Rockies have the second best National League ERA among starting pitchers at the moment, I don't know if I trust them throughout the rest of the season. I think Orlando Garcia is a terrific pitcher. I think Craig Cooper is a terrific pitcher. I worry about Judd Graham. I worry about Ronald Dunham the rest of the way. Whereas you have a Padre team, I think Broderick Wilson figures things out the rest of the way. I still think Michael Matula might be the best young pitcher in the National League. The combo of Manuel Reyes and Jake Odorizzi, I think, give the Padres an edge. You have a lineup that leads the National League in on-base percentage. They're second in runs scored. You have Giancarlo Stanton in the middle of that order, not only belting 25 homers, but this year hitting 344 and an on-base percentage of 414. You have Ramiro Liriano hitting right behind him. You have Ryan Nash at the top of the order, getting on base, running. Ryan Nash has 50 walks and 43 strikeouts on the year, an on-base percentage is 396. If the Padres can get any production out of Eric Hosmer, and that's a big question mark since coming over from the Baltimore Orioles in exchange for Prince Fielder. While they cut payroll down, getting rid of Prince, Eric Hosmer has had a very tough time so far in San Diego. He's 5 of 27, hitting 185. He does have 3 walks, so his on-base percentage is 312. But if they are able to get some production out of Hosmer, I think the Padres are the team to beat the rest of the way in the National League West. Another hot topic that you guys were talking about was the trade deadline. Who's going to be on the move? One name that had been circulating earlier this month came in the American League East, and that had to do with Manny Machado. Will the Baltimore Orioles move Manny Machado? The Red Sox at 29-52. It's been another tough year for general manager Brett Jackson. There have been bright spots, though. John Lester continues to pitch well. You have Frank Burt emerging as a legitimate major league catcher. But you have Manny Machado. Machado signed long-term through 2025 with a team option in 2025, set to make anywhere between $14.9 to $16.9 million. Nice contract by Machado. The 25-year-old shortstop is hitting at 283 and on-base percentage to 384. A question mark with Manny Machado is will his power ever develop? He only has 5 homers in 80 games, 290 at-bats this year. He only hit 18 homers last year. Ever since the 2014 year in which he hit 30, the number has not exceeded 20. Hit 18 in 2015, 20 in 2016, 18 in 2017, and well under that pace this year. if that power develops, or not doesn't develop, but reaches back to what it was, what's the ceiling for Manny Machado? It's arguably elite shortstop in the American League, elite shortstop status in baseball. What's the asking price then on a player at that age, locked up long term, and a contract that frankly is reasonable when we're seeing players routinely now getting over $20 million? If I'm the Red Sox, the asking price either has to be high in terms of prospect talent that you receive, or teams have to be willing to take on a, quote, bad contract from the Boston Red Sox. Does that mean Dominic Brown, set to make $27.5 million in 2019 and a player option at that level for 2020? Is it taking on John Lester, still producing, but again, $14.5 million for the next 2 years? Maybe Daniel Hudson, long-term, signed 3 more years. Juan Nicasio signed through 2023. Does Boston say, we'll talk Machado, but we're also going to include one of those big contracts with them? And with that, does the asking price lower? Who could make a move for Machado? We're going to eliminate the AL East. While it's possible an interdivision trade happens, we're going to rule it out for the time being. The Kansas City Royals recently acquired Dansby Swanson. They thought Swanson was the long-term answer at shortstop, maybe more defensively than offensively, but could they make a run? They have prospects Richard Davis. You have Jordan Jenkins. As we talked about earlier, what about the Minnesota Twins? Again, a team that just stays under the radar. And while Dave Wilson's a more than adequate shortstop. If you add Manny Machado, does that lineup become that much scarier? And when you're looking at Rocky Cook's team, you have some prospects that could be quite attractive to the Red Sox. Derek Fletcher, Brendan Rodgers. You have pitchers Nathan Kirby, Brandon Dixon, Paul Hale, A.J. Bentley. Hard-throwing Hunter Green. They have quite a few options to trade when it comes to the prospect level. American League West, a team that has long had holes at shortstop. What about the Angels? A team that hasn't done anything this year in terms of trading. You have Juan Segura and Aurelio Rivera. Really nothing special. The Angels obviously have the financial flexibility to add a long-term contract. It'd be an upgrade. Similarly, the Seattle Mariners. When it comes to prospects, I'm not sure a team in the position of a playoff contender has better prospects to trade than the Seattle Mariners at the moment. Kane Barnes, Dave Allen, we acquired Jaron Kendall and Zach White earlier in the year. Obviously, the prospect, if I'm trading the likes of a Manny Machado or frankly anyone, the first player I'm asking Seattle for is Justin Hooper. Now, frankly, Seattle and Justin Kaiser are likely going to tell you Justin Hooper's off limits, but you have to start there. You also have Kyle Wright. You have others at the AAA level. You have major league pitchers just waiting to be given a chance that Seattle can't give chances to. 25-year-old Kevin Comer, 25-year-old Joseph Musgrove. They deserve to be at the major league level. Musgrove struck out 126 batters at AAA in 91 innings. Comer, 96 strikeouts, 16 walks in just under 90 innings. These are guys that are worth giving a shot. The National League, can teams do it? The Mets are in the position where they probably don't need a shortstop. You've acquired Elvis Andrus. You still have to deal with the contract of Troy Tulowitzki. They're likely out. But the Atlanta Braves aren't. Miguel Rojas gives them nothing. Bottom of their order. You have high-quality pitching prospects in Atlanta. The trio of Sidney English, a top 100 prospect, Carter Parker, 2008 first-round pick of the Braves, Jerome Hill, acquired late last season from the Miami Marlins. He was May's pitcher of the month down in the minor leagues. He's 3-4 in AAA this year, 3.34 ERA in 60 innings. The Atlanta Braves are loaded in terms of starting pitching at the major league level. So to trade a couple high-end pitching prospects at the minor league level, it doesn't hurt them. they can make a run. Whether anyone in the National League Central wants to make a push at a division of mediocrity this season, and frankly, the NL West is in that position where I don't think anyone can make the run. The Rockies are happy with what Carlos Correa provides. The Padres are trying to just tried to shed payroll with removing Prince Fielder, and while the Giants have seemingly made runs at everyone this year, both in trades and free agency, I think they've tapped themselves out financially at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what the Red Sox do here between the trade deadline. Another Red Sox that could get action on the trade market, and a player that sources have indicated the Red Sox are very high on is Trevor Bauer. That said, Bauer's production in Boston just isn't there. 14 starts in the ERA, hovering around 6 in 88 innings. He's allowed 121 hits. Could a team overpay for Trevor Bauer? It'll be interesting to see. Another topic that you guys were interested in at this point in time had to deal with the All-Star game. Checking in on the All-Star balloting at this point in time, we have some runaways in the American League. Gary Sanchez and Gary Copeland look like unanimous starters at catcher and first base. Second base, we have a tight battle between Angel Daniel Paulini and Royal Jose Rosario. Third base, it appears Michael Franco will get the start there. Arinori Arai leads American League shortstop fairly easily. Outfielders appear to be set with Nomar Mazara, Bryce Harper, and Mark Baker, although with Mark Baker's injury, perhaps JD Martinez slides in if Baker doesn't return. The Mark Baker injury could force Seattle's hand, as we just talked about with Machado, whether it be Machado or elsewhere. Does Seattle kind of say, hey, we need to do something now rather than wait until late July? Keep an eye on things there. Pitching, Nathan Eovaldi's probably going to get the start. Carlos Martinez right behind, also with fellow Blue Jay teammate Justin Verlander. Over in the National League, we have Pardo with the Giants, Jeffrey Marte of the Mets at first base, Brett Lowry at second base. Evan Longoria appears to be the runaway third baseman. We have a tight battle between Greg Miglot and CJ Hinjosa of the Pirates at shortstop. Outfielders, a tight battle while Giancarlo Stanton and Josh Wilcox appear to be starters. The third outfield position in the National League, while both likely all-stars, who's going to be the starter between Armando Cabanas and Matt Dendecker. Pitching, a tight battle at the moment between Bryce Bandia and Dodger Parker Markle. But while those were the players that are likely going to be starting, what you guys were asking about was who's going to fill out the roster for those teams that really aren't having great years. And there were teams that I kind of highlighted were first, obviously, the just talked about Red Sox. While Gary Sanchez is going to be the American League catching starter, look for Frank Burt to potentially land on the All-Star team. Burt in 65 games has 11 homers, hitting .311, a WAR of 3. He's caught 64 games. He's not known for his defense. He's only thrown out 20% of would-be base stealers. But at the end of the day, he's a catcher. He's producing. Frank Burt could be your Boston Red Sox representative. A team that is making things difficult, I think, for the league office moving forward could be the Cleveland Indians, having traded John Lamb earlier in the season. It's going to be interesting to see who's the representative for the Indians. No starting pitchers anywhere near contention at this point in time. Could Xander Bogaerts sneak in as a middle infielder? The average might be there, but I'm not sure much else is. The pitcher that could is really, it's a battle between setup man Paul Weaver and closer Kadir Hashim. It's going to be a question who has kind of the better the next 2 weeks, but they would be the two guys at this point in time I would keep an eye on. The American League Central has two other teams well below 500 that need all-star representatives that have no one in terms of starters, but you have American League and Major League Pro league leader batting average Luis Serrano. At this point in time appears to be a lock. He has to be a lock for the White Sox. The Tigers. The Tigers have 3 players I would keep an eye on. You have Jesus Montero, currently second in American League DH, balloting behind Edgardo Arredondo. You have Josh Johnson, another strong year, and closer Brian Wilson. And finally, a team that doesn't have maybe a clear representative in terms of voting, the Oakland A's. But Jeremy Sullivan has 21 homers, 66 RBIs. He's hitting 250. I'd be shocked if Jeremy Sullivan doesn't make an all-star game. But that could complicate things of other players that are having strong years on the ballot. Over in the National League, starting with the NL East, you have the bottom feeding at the moment Washington Nationals. Keep an eye on starters. But while I think Raynel Vallette maybe would have been the guy many would have penciled in before the season started, it's only 4-8. And while record isn't everything, because he has an ERA of 2.96, it does open the door for fellow Washington Nationals Miguel Pineda and Brian Ames. Brian Ames is 5-3, an ERA of 2.83. 78.6% of his starts have been quality, 11 of his 14. Got 64 strikeouts in 92 innings. Left-handed hitters are hitting 185. Brian Ames is a sneaky NL All-Star representative. The Phillies, let's name Ryobi Kamita an All-Star today. I'm telling you, he's going to get in. We're going to skip the NL Central for a second because we're going to talk about that briefly. But the NL West, the Dodgers, you have Juan Hidalgo. Let's pencil him in. And the Diamondbacks, Rich Dixon. But when it comes to the whole mediocrity of the NL Central, I think figured the Brewers are going to have a representative. The Reds are going to have their choice. Evan Longoria for the Cardinals, and the Pirates have a few choices. The team that I would not want to be in charge of finding an all-star representative for is the Chicago Cubs. Justin Jabs, his rebuild process in Chicago this season is filled with 25 players that, frankly, at the moment, do not deserve all-star game recognition. You have Don Porter out of the bullpen, 24 games pitched, 25 innings, an ERA over 1, but he's walked 17 in 25 innings. He's got a negative WAR. That's tough to swallow. Jose Fierro, his ERA is under 3, 12 starts, 76 innings pitched. But he's 1-6. Again, record isn't everything. Only 6 quality starts, there's 12 games started. Where in Chicago do we say all-star? It's tough to say. It'll be an interesting couple weeks coming here with the All-Star game, with international free agency, with a little bit of this and a little bit of that moving forward. As always, I appreciate the comments, the questions, the rumors everyone submits. It's much appreciated. With that said, let's take a look at tonight's sim. We haven't really been paying attention to that, so 1 second, let's pull up the real-time sim for everyone. What do we have going on tonight? We have top 9, Kansas City Royals 7, Seattle Mariners 4. The Cleveland Indians were shut out by the Oakland A's. Manny Benuelos gets his second win of the year. Justin Masterson falls to 4-8. Juan Carlos Estrada, his first homer of the year. The Texas Rangers beat the Chicago White Sox 7-4. Jamie Whitner moves to 6-3. Ben Rowan picked up his 30th save on the year. The Toronto Blue Jays picked up a run in the 9th to beat the Detroit Tigers 5-4. The Boston Red Sox took down the New York Yankees in the heated rivalry. John Lester 6-5. Kyle Cody falls to 4-6. Pat Crosby moves to 4-8 as the Houston Astros take down the Tampa Bay Rays. Richard Fowler, his 9th homer of the year. The Angels had 2 in the first, 3 in the 9th to beat the Baltimore Orioles 5-1. Over in the National League today, the Pittsburgh Pirates have surrendered 4 runs in the 9th inning. They lose 4-3 to the San Diego Padres. The Rockies beat the Dodgers 6-2. Orlando Garcia 9-1. Ramon Zaragoza hit his 15th homer on the year. The Arizona Diamondbacks beat the San Francisco Giants 4-3. Atlanta takes down the Cardinals 4-1. Matt Barnes moves to 7-7. Dennis Moore his 22nd save on the year. Greg Bird his 12th homer. Evan Longoria his 14th. Continuing on, the New York Mets shut out the Miami Marlins 6-0. Zach Lee his 6th win of the year. Washington Nationals and Tyson Ross shut out the Philadelphia Phillies 3-0. And the Chicago Cubs and the recently mentioned Don Porter moved to 7-0 as the Cubs take down the Twins 3-1. And we have final scores now. The Royals hold on 7-4 winners over the Marlins. Ron Tillman 10-3, 2 homers for Gary Sanchez. He's up to 25 on the year. As always, thank you for listening. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple days, hopefully, with another broadcast. As always, tonight was another edition of MLB Pro Happy Hour. Thanks for listening. Thanks, guys.